or it has the possibility of being that Jesus paid that debt. So the injury that you incurred, that Jesus would say, I gave my life to cover that debt that was owed you. Or should the person continue to live in a wicked behavior, continue to treat others poorly, there will be a judgment day. And there is this trusting of this judgment that Jesus' disciples are supposed to rely upon. So verse 40 then, and if anyone would sue you or take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Now you've heard some conversation, I'm sure, about that the Romans had the right to burden anyone that they had, any nation or people that they had subjugated. They could ask any of those people to carry their armament and their pack with them for 1 mile, but they were restricted on how far they could go. There was a certain distance that they could go. Jesus here is saying, look, if that's forced upon you, don't look at it as just a burden that you have to carry, but rather be willing to carry beyond. Be willing to go beyond. Let your testimony and compassion for that person and care for that person go beyond. May they see you as someone who is faithful. May they see you as someone who really cares about the burden that they are bearing. So he's turning on its head somewhat all of the things that are being, how the Jewish people are being subjugated, how they're being pressed down, how they're being forced to serve. And he's pushing that down, and he's saying, don't look at it as that, look at it as obedience to me. Now, of course, I'm paraphrasing there, right? I'm interpreting at this point. I'm not paraphrasing, I'm interpreting what it is that he is saying. So you can take that interpretation if you'd like, or you can look at it yourself and say, hey, I'm not sure that's really what's being said here. But certainly we must treat the words of Jesus with the value and the impact that this the king who is communicating to his disciples. This is how you review. Give to anyone who begs from you, and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles? So you could even read that in there. The people of other nations, the pagans, don't they do that? You therefore must be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. So not only has Jesus, bless you. Bless. Not only has Jesus now put this larger fence or parameter around the commands of God, but now he is communicating very specific things to his disciples on how it is that they are to follow him. And they aren't to be like the other nations of the world. And you aren't to just do things for people who like you. You know, it's interesting to me that even within our culture today, where we would have to say the resonance of a Christian culture is still all about us, the concepts that Jesus is teaching here is so counter to the way that we behave. It is so counter to human behavior that we would have to intentionally deny our flesh to do these things. Now, I have to be clear and transparent here. Every time I read these words, I have to ask myself, do I do these things? Now, someone might say, oh, yeah, sure. I love my enemy. I go out of my way for them. When somebody puts a burden on me that is greater than what I should bear, I eagerly do that for the next distance. Now, I could say that, but if I said that, I wouldn't be telling you the complete truth. I don't always do that. Sometimes I bristle under the weight of expectation that is upon me. Sometimes an expectation that is upon me will burden me so much that I'm ready to just explode because of frustration and anger with the fact that this burden has been put on me. And yet here Jesus is teaching me to be so counter to that. That when such burdens are put upon me, that I am to go an extra distance. I gotta say, I'm not being faced with the very scenario that the Jews were at that time. These are not police officers marching in the street who are now giving me burdens that I have to carry. Can you imagine for a moment now a police officer showing up here and saying, all right, each of you, I want you to carry all my gear because it's too heavy. And I'm heading into Canby, and so I want you to carry my gear for me into Canby. We might have a few volunteers to begin with. But the likelihood is that some of us are going to bristle under such a request. We've got other things planned. We've got work to do. Anybody ever had your day scheduled and then had somebody come up with a request that doesn't take into account the possibility at all of what you might have? We look at that as disrespectful. Well, especially in the American culture. If I don't say, hey, do you have time to do this? If I just say, look, I'm going to need to ask you to do this, and I want it done. The expectation is it will be done. That'd be hard for us to deal with. That's exactly what these people are dealing with. What happens to a fisherman if he has to spend the better part of a day carrying somebody's gear?
His livelihood goes out.
You bet. His family may have trouble eating that night. Right? That's some tough stuff. Jesus says of his disciples, this is how you're to behave. Now, clearly I have to tell you that not only is this difficult, but it also requires a reliance upon, a belief upon, not only final justice being meted out by God, but God caring about your daily needs while you go about being a disciple. Certainly this isn't somehow an excuse not to work, but it is, if anything, an impact upon them to say, this is how you must behave in a way that is so counter. Now I need to look at the chapel schedule to see. Okay, so
That's the assembly.
Thank you. So it doesn't make any difference, same thing.
Okay.
But thank you for.
Sorry, just trying to help.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you, because I could have gone off of that at another time, and maybe it would have been different. Although I guess it is a little different on the third class. But other than that, I need to give you guys a break.
Whew.
So we'll do that, and then we'll jump right into what we
Get
can
a
change.
reaction.
Sound good?
All right, should I pause the video?
Mm-hmm.
Hi.